All right, popping back in for another segment. And we want to kind of in segue and from our last content and thinking about the next steps for Tim Zoo and particularly the 154 weight division. There's a lot of outside factors that are going to impact those decisions, as with many other fighters. And this is the recent news that came out that Showtime is going to shut down its boxing operations at the end of 2023. So there was a couple of statements that were put out by Paramount, who is basically kind of not did a merger, but basically kind of a takeover with Showtime program. I'm sure that you got plenty of notifications about that. And then there's also a statement provided by Steven Espinoza. So we'll jump into that. Showtime, or Paramount, excuse me, said that as we revolve our strategy to more efficiently allocate resources and align our content offering across the businesses, we made the difficult decision not to move forward with boxing and other content produced by the Showtime sports team. So we'll see. We'll have to kind of dig through that a little bit because there was this understanding that they would continue on with Showtime pay-per-view. But that statement doesn't seem to intimate that. And Espinoza also had a statement and basically this was on the longtime, department president for kind of sports brands. I mean, Showtime sports brand. Steven Espinoza stated that the company's decision is not a reflection of the work we have done in recent years, nor our long and proud history. Unfortunately, in a rapid evolving media marketplace, the company has had to make the difficult choices allocating resources, resetting priorities, and reshaping its content offering. While today's news is certainly difficult and disappointing, it is entirely out of our control. So
what a bunch of bullshit. I'm not all of this bullshit. Let me be clear. I'm sure that some of that is true, but the first thing he said, something along the lines of the company's decision is not a reflection of the performance, the relationship that we've had over the last year. It is 1,000% a reflection of the performance of PBC and whatever during the time they've worked with Showtime. It absolutely is. 100%. Sorry, go ahead. This is what you were going to say.
No, that was it. I just wanted to kind of provide those quotes to set the stage, but we can start there, and then we'll talk a little bit about why Showtime decided to discontinue its boxing operation. But we also want to look forward and try to understand what this means to the health and future boxing. So this is when you talk about PBC. They have probably 2/3 of the top fighters, in boxing today. And, at this moment, they're looking for
getting old though.
A network. Yeah, it is. All right. So,
those 2/3 are getting up in age.
You have to replenish it at some point, but at the same
time, they have not done. Which they have not done because the reputation of the company is so shitty that the Shakur Stevensons, the Devin Haneys, the Keyshawn Davises, the Floyd Schofields, the Duke Reagans, the Xander Zayas, the Shushu Carringtons, and the list goes on and on and on. They will not sign with them.
And will not sign with them. Who are they signing with also?
They're signing with Top Rank, and they're signing with Matchroom, and they're signing with Golden Boy. Still.
Right? Yeah, I mean
that's who they're signing with.
Yeah, I think almost all those fighters that you named are actually signed to Top Rank.
Yeah, with the exception of Schofield. Schofield is signed with to Golden Boy.
Okay,
but the rest of them guys are signed to Top Rank. I can't think of a top guy that what's it called? Matchroom has Belonga. Matchroom has got Belonga. Matchroom has got. Well, they had Motor John.
And with all due respect, I mean that's not a top guy. I mean he has drawing power. Yeah, he has drawing power. He's not a top guy. But we don't want to split hairs on that. But so let's talk about I know that you have some inside knowledge about offers that have been made to PBC. So what is that basically, you know, kind of speak on things that you kind of know about. So what is that?
I can speak on it. I can speak on it now because it's out there. Some of the different YouTube personalities are, you know, we're talking about it earlier this week. But I got this information. I don't know, when did I send you guys that initial text about Showtime was done and that they were in talks with the with people from DAZN? That was several weeks ago, right?
Yeah. You were out of the country at the time, so
yeah. So it had to have been still in September when I got the information that that Showtime was done, which had been out there. That's not the really good info that I got, but the interesting info that I got was that DAZN was currently and had been going back and forth and was in talks with PBC to acquire some of their fighters, not all of their fighters, and that was the really interesting tidbit that I heard. What I was told was that look, DAZN is interested in a chunk of PBC stable. The top third of the stable is what I was told. The other 70 some odd % of those fighters are going to would be cut, or Mr. Heyman, as my man put it, would have to seek different broadcast arrangements with them. DAZN does not have any interest in trying to provide fight dates for over 200 fighters, which is, last time I checked, is approximately the number of fighters that are signed at PBC. It's over 200 guys, plus their matchroom guys, plus plus their Golden Boy fighters. That's a lot of guys to provide dates for, and they're just simply not interested in that.
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. So, right. So would you say that the way to put it is that they're not looking for an exclusive deal with PBC. They're actually just looking to basically have these networking relationship with a select few fighters from them, right? So
again, this was over chat, so I didn't get all those details.
Because they're not pressuring them to get rid of 70% of their stable to have this exclusive deal, right?
No. What I got, again, this wasn't a conversation verbally, this was text, was that they only want a third of the stable. They want the top third of the top 33%. They are not interested in acquiring all 200 fighters, right? What I was also told was that the price tag that is out there that PBC apparently offered to DAZN was way above what DAZN is willing to pay. And DAZN was like, hey, not only are we not going to give you what you want for those 200 fighters, we're not going to give you what you're asking for that top third either. You know, it's look, DAZN is in a position of leverage from what I gather, and they are treating this negotiation as any business party would, from a position of power, from a position of leverage.
It is, but and thinking about the options that PBC have, I know that there's possibly a counter offer that might be put in by HBO Max, like for example. And then could you also, do you think that ESPN Plus, would they be also a player within this whole scenario?
So no, on the ESPN, and I can't get into that. I was asked to not get into that little bit of information that I was told about what ESPN's and Top Rank's potential effect on all this is. So I can't talk about that. But again, it's I think it's out there now that HBO or Time Warner has expressed interest apparently in bringing PBC to the streaming platform in some fashion. Again, what I was told was that Heyman is pursuing the same type of networking arrangements that he had with Showtime and with Fox, right? Where the top guys, your Spencers, your Wilders, your Thurmans, your Garcias, your Porters, would be fighting on Fox, and in this case, DAZN, and the lower tier fighters, the other 169 or whatever fighters he has, would be put on cards, would be used to bolster cards on, in this case, either HBO Max or Amazon Prime. And that's where Amazon Prime comes into the discussion. At first, Amazon Prime, it was believed by DAZN, was only approached to try to get more money out of a DAZN offer. The way it was put to me was that DAZN never ever took the Amazon Prime option seriously. That has changed in the last couple of weeks since I sent an initial message to y'all. Amazon Prime is very much a factor, but not in the way that people are thinking. It's looking like the top guys, your Wilders, your Spencers, your whoever, those guys would be fighting on DAZN, and your other bottom 2/3 would be fighting primarily on Amazon Prime. That's the way it was put to me.
I can see that.
I don't know. The last message I got was a day or two ago.
I think that's a creative way to work towards a solution. I think it's unsustainable to take on the pressure of 200 fighters within your stable that you're going to be champion. So, and exactly,
it'd be way more than that, right? It'd be way more because you got your Matchroom. DAZN still has Matchroom.
Exactly. So, and then you're going to be responsible within each year to provide these fighters with enough, appearances and fights on a network. So, I think it can be, so it's a creative way that kind of brings in two different streaming platforms. But I think in this day and age that it's nothing wrong with kind of having these bilateral, agreements with these companies. So, and for us, right, we're going to report on it, but we would rather stay out of these issues regarding kind of networks and promotions. And we just want to make sure that there is an infrastructure present that is going to afford us the opportunity to see the best fights that are available. So talk a little bit about the potential implications of if this deal would go through, where the top third of PBC fighters would come on to DAZN, which already is housing, right, Matchroom Boxing, and who else? The thing you mentioned.
So you got Matchroom, you got Golden Boy,
and Golden Boy.
You got a bunch of other promoters. Your Dimitri Salitas, your Lou DiBellas. Those guys also do business with DAZN.
Also, and so let's go ahead. This is a little bit of kind of a hypothetical, but there was also news that Top Rank and ESPN might be ending their relationship a year early.
I was asked not to talk about that.
Okay, but let's say just hypothetically, let's say that all of them came under the umbrella of the zone, right? Then there's no more other side of the street, right?
There's no more islands. There's no more islands. But where it looks like we're a long ways away from that right now,
is egos.
It's not just it is right, because at the same time, right, after all the stuff, derogatory statements that Bob Arum has, made about Oscar De La Hoya and saying Heyman, but I think that they'll put those aside. But then, so it's this ego where you kind of like realizing, right, all right, you know what, we actually got to, for the sustainability of our company, and more importantly for the health of boxing, we actually got to kind of come together. We got to eat a little bit of crow and actually kind of work together instead of just trying to create this set of a sort of a hierarchy within boxing. And who's this? Like, no, let's work together. There's plenty of money that's made out there. I mean, this is billion, some dollars worth of business. But like, let's go ahead and for the health and for the future of boxing, look to find a way to create a model that's sustainable
and that is going to kind of recapture the what, you know, like from the like the trust from the public, right? So there's this kind of mistrust that we
I think that's
have.
right. The
Yeah.
public trust, the trust from the fans that promoters and networks are going to work
in the best interest, right?
Best interest of the fans, and that is what in their best financial interest, which is what you have seen from PBC and other promoters. I'm not going to just say it was just PBC, but since PBC is the only major promotional company without a network here at the end of the year,
at the moment,
right? And since that's the topic of our conversation, yeah, I gotta single them out. I mean, we've seen years and years and years of over marination. We've heard over and over again from the Espinosas, from the Leonard Ellerbys, from the, not the Sam Watsons, the Tom, that this fight doesn't make sense, or this fight needs to wait. We need to marinate. That word marination, the sport has marinated itself, and PBC has marinated itself almost out of the boxing game right now. Well, waiting way too long to give us fights.
And in fact, the marination has been done so well that they kind of turned into cannibals, where they're almost kind of right. You know,
well, what do you mean?
In the sense that they are right, so that they when for Top Rank, they'll marinate fights like so long that they'll actually ended up impacting their actual
you mean PBC, not Top Rank.
Well, not Top Rank, so like program. So for example, reason I'm just bringing them up because one of that term I thought you almost took at verbatim from when Bob Arum was trying to marinate the fight between Gamboa and Juan Manuel Lopez, right?
Yeah, but yeah,
they were both undefeated, and then we could have got an all-time great fight, but he wanted to marinate it so long that what happened that Lopez, before Gamboa, but he got exposed, he got knocked out by Salido, and then again, and he was never the same fighter. And then
right,
I think we ended up getting that fight, but we never got these two undefeated. Were the featherweights at the time 126?
126 guys, yeah.
We should have had that fight. His arrogance, right? It turned him into a little cowboy. He was just kind of eating off his own arm, in the sense that it was like he marinated so well that he was just feeling himself and ended up chewing off his own arm.
Yeah, but Cam,
that fight was never as big as it was supposed to be. That was a pay-per-view fight.
But Cam, Bob Arum admitted a year or two ago that he never ever wanted Lopez to fight Gamboa because he thought Lopez would get hurt fighting Gamboa, and that's another thing that you see in this sport. He
got hurt anyway.
Let's fight. Right, he did, but
by a lesser opponent, yeah.
Right, but I remember that, and I absolutely do, and not only that, you saw a guy, Mikey Garcia, who refused to fight Yuriorkis Gamboa, and when Bob Arum said, hey, you either fight him or you can go sit down somewhere, Mikey Garcia opted to go sit down on his couch, right? And Mikey Garcia was out of boxing for almost 2 years because he couldn't fight Yuriorkis Gamboa. But when it comes to Gamboa and Lopez, that wasn't marination, that was protection. That was executive protection from Bob Arum. And again, that was a different day.
It didn't do Lopez
HBO at that time. They were on HBO at that time, I think.
It didn't do Lopez any favors at all. I would not like.
No, it didn't. It ended up backfiring.
Exactly. It didn't do him any favors. But I mean, you know, just to kind of bring us back to the point is that you know, at this time. So, and then we're going to kind of get away from, like, you know, when it's appropriate to, you know, put in your young fighters and upstarts into these challenging positions. But there is a kind of a thin line that we draw between being able to, in a productive and effective way, bring up your fighter, you know, where they're taking on challenges, but then also not missing out on their prime, not just within age and stuff, but just, you know, the punishment that you take within the ring is something that's going to take away your prime. And then we saw within like 2 or 3 fights that Lopez prime was just wiped away. But and then possibly like, so think about what happened with, I mean, there's a lot of other factors, but think about what happened with Spence. Even though Terrence Crawford put on an all-time performance, there was one fighter in the ring that had some events, maybe not fights, but other things away that kind of took away his physical prime. Or it was a lot further away than Terrence Crawford was at that time. And
I agree with that. I agree with that when it comes to, but I mean, the list goes on and on for PBC. I mean, that Caleb Plant Benavidez fight was a year or two too late, and may end up costing them a big fight between Benavidez and Canelo. The Hurd Jamel Charlo fight never happened. Gary Russell Leo Santa Cruz fight never ever happened. Gary Russell Tank is never ever going to happen at this point. We never got Wilder Joshua. To say what you want about whoever was to blame for that, but again, the promoters are not giving us the fights that we the fans want, and then definitely not giving us. And if we eventually do get them, they end up way too late, a la Pacquiao and Floyd, right? So, yeah, it's the big silver lining to this cloud is that I think in some way, shape, or form, we end up with a more unified boxing at the end of this. And when I say the end of this, I mean when PBC eventually puts ink to paper and signs a contract. I think you're going to see in some kind of capacity, you're going to see the top guys on PBC will be fighting on DAZN. I think you'll see some of the top guys also fighting on Amazon Prime, the way Tank Davis stayed on Showtime, the way Tank stayed on Showtime, the way Jamel Charlo, the Charlo brothers stayed on Showtime, but you saw Spence and you saw Wilder fighting on Fox. I believe you will see some sort of duplication of that with DAZN and Amazon Prime, maybe even HBO Max being the two primary platforms that PBC uses.
All right.
At least as of right now.
Yeah. So one thing is that I think with this segment, we kind of ended on a Zoo quote. So this is not Tim Zoo or Costa Zoo, but this is actually Sun Tzu. And
I see what you did there. Okay.
And then what he said, so he says that in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. So this is a bit of a chaotic time when you think about some of our biggest boxing promotions searching for a network home. And then there is an opportunity for us to provide some rekindling of relationships, and that will kind of forge a very strong infrastructure that would lead us to a very, pragmatic model of getting these fights done, right? So, and then that's what and I'll talk about UFC, right? So they have issues when it comes to like fighter pay and all these other things, but they do not mind putting in their young upstarts in challenging fights. And then they put on the fights that, particularly have the best of the best. And then they do it often. And then that, it's a different product, that you're watching. These are different sports. But in that
different business model too, almost a different business.
Exactly. And when it comes to that business model, they are, winning, but it is a bit of a monopoly but they don't have you realize that like they don't have a monopoly over MMA. Those fighters can choose to go to those organizations, but when they have provided such a high level of production and they have most of the top fighters in there that's under, so when there's a belt that's won, this is not from a sanctioning body. It's basically a promotional belt, right? So this is the UFC's belt, right? The UFC is the promotion, but there is credibility that is assigned to those belts that are won, that are outside of the sanctioning bodies. And what we get is very, very competitive fights, and probably a half a dozen noteworthy pay-per-views a year, even though they do a pay-per-view at least once a month, sometimes even twice a month. But for us, we have to realize and take note that we're not the only kid, in the park at this time. And then we got to realize that other people are getting attention, and everybody can eat, right? This is not this kind of thing, but there's things that can be learned from what they are as a promotional organization, what they're able to do.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely, there is. Absolutely, there is something to be learned. And I think boxing has learned it the hard way. So when it comes to paying these guys, I'm sorry. Some of these guys who have been making what they've been making, you ain't gonna make that on Amazon Prime. All right. And you're not making that. DAZN has learned their lesson the hard way. HBO learned their lesson the hard way. Showtime has learned their lesson the hard way. You cannot continue to overpay fighters. You have to pay fighters what their market value was. And hopefully from this, you will begin to see hopefully this will be at like a hard reset, like hitting the reset button on the pay scale. Once the dust settles and PBC ends up somewhere, because these guys can't keep getting what they've been getting. I don't want to go through the list and name off guys who have been making ridiculous sums of money, and these guys aren't worth it.
It's unsustainable, right? And on the long term, right? So you just
certainly is not.
There's some partnerships and friendships that are that allow you to kind of take out this debt, or or get this credit card, but at some point you have to put forth a model that is going to be profitable, unless
profitability and sustainability are the two things. And Dana White and his buddies they've got that. They've got the profitability part down. Now, as far as the sustainability,
because there's a big kind of like margin when it comes to the money that comes to the organization, to the fighters.
Well, it's not just that. But look at, I don't think, and as an MMA, as a UFC casual, I don't think that UFC still has the same appeal that it had when you had Ronda Rousey running around as the premier women's fighter in all UFC, and then you had Conor McGregor running around. That's just me from the outside looking in. I don't know what the numbers are, but I know this, that the UFC cannot continue to lose Ronda Rousey's and Francis Ngannou's and Conor McGregor's, and they cannot continue to lose those guys. I don't think that bodes well for them as an organization. I think they have a pretty loyal, devoted, hardcore fan base that has sustained them. Not paying these fighters probably what they're worth, especially the top guys like John Jones, not paying those guys what they're worth has also helped to sustain them. They cannot continue to lose top fighters, mainstream fighters like Rousey, like McGregor. They can't keep doing that. But
all right,
they're better off than boxing is right now. No question about it. Way better off than boxing is right now.
All right. And on that note, we'll go ahead and kind of wrap up this segment, but provide your own comments on where you think the future of these boxing promotional organizations are going to go. And if you think it's a good or a bad thing that we've got this kind of chaos that is imminent at this point when it comes to these promotion companies.